everything I do is very serendipitous. There's a lot of synchronicity involved, and I think in everyone's lives too. If you really get a look at your life, why are you where you're at today? It's through a series of so-called random events and synchronicities.
And it always seems to be that way as well, doesn't it? I mean, you'll have spoken to many people who have explained things like synchronistic events or just a bizarre series of events which all culminate in bringing you in a certain place. And it all feels like it sometimes does happen for a particular reason. And when you were talking about duality and trinity there, some people have obviously spoken about that we did experience a split in the past. And one way I look at that is we're sort of relearning who we really are. And that's how we bring the Trinity on board. So rather than it being a physical or a spiritual split, it just seems to be more like a memory, whereas we don't remember who or what we really are. I suppose the further down the path of spiritual enlightenment, you could call it, or spiritual understanding, it has more to do with the mind, the spirit, and the body.
Yeah.
Rather than people just looking at things and saying, this is light, this is dark, this is good, this is bad.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas it's more to do with, the active, the passive, and the neutral.
Yeah.
So where people like Michael Hayes in his books, and one of our guys, Mark Cockin, will have spoken about that. We do have more people now that are now aware of this and are now spreading this information as far as they can.
Yeah, thank God for that. I find at the moment as well there's a lot of criticism, which is quite ironic, against the masculine energy as being less than the feminine, Yeah. Oh, it's all left brain. But, we need to respect both within ourselves. I mean, we've had a big suppression of the feminine over the last few hundred years or so, maybe longer, but it doesn't help then to point the finger and, start attacking the other side. It's defeating the object. It's getting that balance right within ourselves.
I've got something here that you'll probably be interested in. It's about the Hermetic Code, and it is about the law of 3, the law of 7, the octave, and obviously relates, very much. It is the Trinity, another way of looking at it. Now, from the work of Michael Hayes, he's got 3 books: The Hermetic Code, High Priest's Quantum Genes, and The Infinite Harmony. And it's all about frequency, sound, DNA, golden ratio, pi, things like that. He talks about the 3 forces. And he says 3, the number of the Trinity, is the number of octaves encoded within pi. 7 is the number of intervals between the notes of each of these octaves. 4 is the number of bass notes. Those are the do's, as in do, re, mi, in 3 consecutive octaves. 8 is the number of fundamental notes in a single octave. 22 is the number of notes in 3 consecutive octaves. According to the law of 3 forces, the 3 octaves incorporated in pi are each subdivisible into 3 octaves apiece, giving an inward formula of 9 octaves or 64 notes. So 8 is the constant and 64 is the square of it. And that's
interesting, because Ellis Taylor, who I also interviewed for Dangerous Man. I mean, there's 33 people I've interviewed for this book, so it's a hell of a lot of information to take on. I think there's something like 42 in Soul Companions. Ellis Taylor talks about how numbers have a frequency or a vibration. In his numerology, of course, every letter then has a number. It's all down to numbers and frequency. We can't get away from it. You can't even get away from it if you're not named when you're born, because you're still born on a date. But basically what Ellis is saying is it's like that's the matrix we're born into. Yeah. The particular date on the calendar and the name we're given. And that is encoded. And it's so spot on. The numerology he uses is different from conventional numerology, because he uses different numbers for the capital letters because they're a different shape.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
So they've got a different frequency, and actually it's just so spot on. And he's got a really good book. It's got several good books. Living in the Matrix is the one that you need to get if you're interested in the numerology side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And he's also written a few other books. In These Signs Conquer is another book he's written, and that's to do with the symbols, that aspect of things. But yeah, I'm really interested in the fact that just by my name, I've got loads of 3s, which is quite funny. Yeah, and 3 comes up for me an awful lot. I wrote a blog the other day, my blog, The Muse, and when I looked at it afterwards, and I really didn't even clock this, I think it's the date. Everything is 3. The time is 3:33.
Wild.
And I thought, okay. When I was actually looking at the article itself, I put an image in this particular blog post of a guy, and he's got like a placard. He's wearing a placard. And I just thought, how funny is that I'd actually, even in the image, there's loads of 3s.
Yeah.
And the time was 3. And honestly, it looked like I planned it all. I really had not.
Yeah, it was done. People would be accused you of that.
They would. But I found that quite, again, you could call it spooky if you like. But it's that synchronicity at play again. There's so much that happens that we just think is random. How random is it really? I don't know.
Well, I suppose it comes. This is where the whole free will comes into it, doesn't it? Where does free will play a part, and where does fate? I don't know. It's a strange one to explain or even argue against or for, because the free will aspect would mean that everything's chaotic and it's all chaos, and free will is just, you can't. Nothing is written. Nothing is set to happen.
Yeah.
And therefore there shouldn't be any of these ridiculous coincidences or synchronicities. And then on the other side, there's obviously the fate and things that are written, In
a way, I kind of see it. I've got this image of this ever-shifting jigsaw, and things, people, events, times, whatever, come into the jigsaw, and the pieces kind of fit, but it's moving all the time. And so pieces come and pieces go, and sometimes you're out of sync with that jigsaw, and it feels then like you're really waiting for something to catch up.
Yeah.
Like there's a piece not quite in place, and it can't move until that piece is in place.
I know what you mean.
I quite get that feeling a lot, and I get very frustrated and impatient, very impatient. It's just like, well, look, why isn't this happening when I've done an ABC,
Mm-hmm.
And things don't seem to kind of take off until they're meant.
That's it. Okay, folks, you've been listening to a conversation with Karen Sawyer, with myself, Mike Cooper from Northeast Truth. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and thanks for tuning in. Good night.